morning, good morning, good morning. Ryan said I have to play the theme song, Gareth's theme song.
Yeah, well, since we're supposed to fade it out, apparently. You can't just drop
guys,
it.
Please,
is away.
Early on a Thursday morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. There's no Gareth. I don't know why we have to play his theme song, but I do have you here with me today. And you guys don't know this, but just now, Bakh'abantu was complaining about his haircut. It was like his hair's frizzy.
Yes.
But I made him take his cap off.
Yes, and you did.
You're so cute with your haircut. And we have a guest in studio with us visiting, Mrs. Ntombi Mkhwanazi. I do have a disclaimer. Bakh'abantu was asking her if the Mkhwanazi is Ndebele or Swati or Zulu. Okay, so I do have a disclaimer, guys. And the disclaimer is that Ntombi here is actually family to me. She is my and there was no tender and she didn't get she's not getting paid. And we're not getting paid. She comes from Yellowwood. She's the youth platform manager. And I asked her to join us because the other day she was I was in a presentation that she was giving about the youth market. And I thought, this is what we have to talk about today, because everybody's talking about the youth. Everybody's talking about getting young people to the voting stations next year. And I was wondering, do we really know who they are? Do we know what they like? Do we know how to talk to them? Because I'm not a youth anymore. Even in the don't laugh when.
Well, the youth is technically what the cap is, 35?
35.
So Sispum, you don't look a day over 35.
Oh. You're so kind, you can stay. And I thought, well, I'm definitely letting her come and chat with us a little bit. First, Ntombi, tell us a little bit about the study and what it involves. And then, because we've got a whole lot of other things that Bakh'abantu and I want to talk about, and then you've got to throw in your insights and what you know from that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, firstly, thank you for having me. So I'm at Yellowwood and we're a strategy consultancy company. And essentially every year we run a research study called the Gen Next Youth Behavior Research. And it also forms part and parcel with the Coolest Brands preference study that a lot of people are much more familiar with when it comes to our research that we do. And essentially what we do is we go out into all 8 provinces, 8 of 9 provinces in South Africa. We talk to young people across board. We connect with about 15,000 young people, really wanting to understand their outlooks, their attitudes, their level of fulfillment, their behaviors. So looking at lifestyle and leisure, what they do online, their retail and finance behaviors, and really wanting to understand who they are and how they relate to the world around them, right? So our final output is 4 different reports between the ages of 8 and 30. And we split them into 4 reports across the age groups, teens, tweens, young adults, and young professionals. And we also produce a double click into that research, which is our segmentation report that starts looking at the audience as archetypes. So looking at the common threads and characteristics across young people and not necessarily just across the 4 reports. And essentially this research is really about unpacking and wanting to understand the youth market far better than what we do, because obviously it's also an ongoing task that you need to do, right? The youth changes so often, pop culture, things around them happen so frequently. They're quite agile in what they like. And it's really important for us to also understand that and move at their pace and speed as well. So that is really the premise of the research that we do. And we offer it out to businesses, anyone who's really wanting to connect with young people a lot better than they currently do.
Am I young, Sister? I don't think I am.
Why was I mean?
No. I'm pretty old at this point.
Really? Yeah. What makes you say that?
I've grown. I'm mature. I shave now.
Well, this is important, right? Because it's all of the things that because in the Sunday Times, right? So you see all of the stuff, the Coolest Brands or whatever in the Sunday Times. And I've always been fascinated by how they get to decide what that means. But when I was listening to Ntombi give this presentation, this is going to blow your mind, because they also ask about young people's attitudes to life. And I think a lot of South Africans this week, we're all feeling quite like up there. We're between praying and Patla, for those who do, and calling on all the ancestors and all of our gods for Saturday. There is also, and this week I think we're pretty up. We're all quite excited, and we're up because of the Springboks and what they're doing, because sports does that for us. But mostly I think South Africans are going through a rough time.
Yeah.
And I was extremely fascinated to hear about young people in Limpopo.
Yeah. So what we found through our research is that young people in Limpopo are actually the most positive young people in the country.
Yeah.
And for us, this was like, what? You'd almost expect that from like a Gauteng or a Western Cape. But young people in Limpopo, when it comes to their outlooks and their level of fulfillment, they are coming out much higher compared to the other provinces. And this is across age groups, right? So right from 8-year-olds to 30-year-olds, because of the life that they experience in their province. And when you start thinking about the aggressive infrastructure investments happening in the province, the growing local entertainment, and I guess the pop culture around Limpopo as a whole, you start really seeing why and how this may be impacting young people's sense of, I guess, positivity and outlook on life. It really has shown through in our research that they are really loving Limpopo right now. And what we've also found is that the University of Venda actually was voted the coolest university in our survey. And that, I guess, is a good proof point to show just how positive they are about what is happening in Limpopo. And obviously the growing educational system as well is a good plus for them to, to start feeling really great about what is happening in their province. So yeah, the province of Limpopo, University of Venda.
See, and
I'm not getting paid, but
Millicent comes in. Every time I see somebody, so Millicent Manzini sent a good morning, but in Tsonga it says Absheni, and then I'm like, hey, see, she's feeling it.
Absolutely.
Good morning.
Yeah, you see, the problem with vendors is probably, hey,
that's Tsonga, it's not Venda.
It's Tsonga. Oh.
That's Tsonga. It's not Avu. It's
I know,
Abu.
It's the French of South Africa.
It certainly is. It certainly is. And you know what else? Gana, which province are you from?
Eastern Cape. I come from where they make them. But I have a very quick question for you, Ms. Mkhwanazi. So like, why are the youth in Limpopo like is it because of like so there's this phenomenon, like when you've reached the top of civilization, let's say like in Joburg, right? There's nothing to dream, there's nothing to discover more. Mm-hmm. But in Limpopo, when you're still at the brink, you're still creating, when you're still building houses, because one of the beautifulest houses I've ever seen was in Limpopo.
Yeah.
Is it that there's still more road, there's still more to look forward to? Because in Joburg, like I feel like if I see the Leonardo outside, like that's the pinnacle. That's the tallest building in Africa. I can't dream above that. But would you think that the reason why the youth is so positive there, because there's so much more to do? Because you come from way less. And
from a low base?
Yeah. I would definitely think so. I mean, there's a lot of development happening in the province. And I guess also it's coming from a lot of the young people that have grown or coming from Limpopo, right? So they're plowing back into their communities. And we see a lot of that happening. We see it on social media, how people are, yes, you mentioned the houses, how people are praising that growth and that sense of development in the province. I think also just because that level of investment is happening in the province, I think young people are seeing that there's not much need to leave, and they can stay and kind of leverage the opportunities that are coming into Limpopo. So that sense of wanting to be self-fulfilled within your current community has come out quite strongly in the research that we've done. Yeah.
And so, even though it's not yet the burning platform, but this is something that we talk about a lot here on the show, is getting young people, A, to vote, but B, to be more involved in their communities. And one of the things that you were talking about the study, is seeing how many young people and how much more the young people have lost trust in institutions and politics and all of that. Do you want to talk us a little bit about that? Because I think that's an important thing to understand, and also why.
Absolutely. So, I mean, we have seen that, there's been a deterioration of trust in the legal system and the political system. And knowing what we know, load shedding, water shedding, there's a lot that's going on. Service delivery is not great. And young people see these things. It obviously impacts their lives on a daily basis. And it is those specific things that has deteriorated that trust in those government institutions, where the people that should be taking care of us are not really showing up to the party. There's also been revealing that governing bodies that have been put in place to put people accountable for their actions have not really been delivering on their promise. And that in itself has kind of, discouraged young people when it comes to trusting legal and political systems. And I think, being very clear and understanding why that is very important, because then you will know what you're not doing right when it comes to young people, what they think about you as well, because we all know that as a young generation, we have very loud voices. We're not scared to talk about what is affecting us, what is not going well in our communities and our lives. And I think it's important for those institutions to listen to young people and really take them seriously in where they need help, where their levels of need really lie. So, yeah.
So, Bakh'abantu, you wanted to talk about the music awards, the
summer talking about
summer
people not trusting institutions.
SAMA.
Yeah, SMA.
And
summer
not
awards.
summer as in the sun is shining outside. And I want to talk about. Okay, tell us what you wanted to talk about with regard.
No, it was basically that. The summer awards were gonna happen. Next thing, they're not happening because Cyril stepped into the room and basically said, "You guys can't spend 20 mil on this." This was the KZN and basically Durban and their tourism department. They were going to spend 20 million in the same time where we were waiting for a budget speech that's going to talk about budget cuts. That's going to talk about. I'm not saying there's no room for the arts here, Sis Phumi. Don't get me wrong. But in the same time where we are talking about the budget is constricting, right? I forgot what the word was. There's a very nice word that they're using. To explain the budget and what it's doing. Yeah. It's my accounting teacher would slap me right now. So now, but this time they want to spend 20 million on the summer awards. So Cyril said no, and the KZN department, I think, kind of challenged it actually. The tourism department. And I think tourism in South Africa is running wild with money. Hey, they're changing names. They're doing a lot. They want to sponsor Spurs. They just the tourism department has too much money.
No, so I want to bring this up because I'm kind of thinking these are things that, young people absolutely love. And these are the industries that a lot of young people are getting into and kind of pushing, whether it's tourism, whether it's arts and culture and music, and because we have so much of that we've exported overseas. And what are their attitudes to kind of some of the South African brands when it comes to things like that?
So I think the general census is that young people really want brands to plow into their areas of passion. So if I'm into sports, if I'm into music, I really want to connect with a brand in that space that I'm already in. It shouldn't be forceful or anything like that. But I think it needs to be sensible as well. We obviously are living in a very difficult time as South Africans, and yes, it impacts us young people. So brands need to really be cognizant of the steps that they take in wanting to connect with young people. What you do needs to make sense. What you do needs to be impactful, and it needs to speak to me on a level that I will understand.
But don't you think the disconnect comes from this whole. Have you ever noticed that everyone in power or in a position to make decisions are old, and everyone but we're targeting the youth here. We have a very geriatric system, right?
Are you there?
No,
Are you in the spaces? Are you in the?
I'm here.
But I agree. I guess on a personal level, I definitely agree with you on that. And I think we're seeing also in other countries where younger politicians or thought leaders are coming up the ranks and really driving change in those countries. I think in South Africa, it's been a contention point for a while. And look, I'm not a political head of any sort, but yes, I do agree with that point.
But yeah, so to the point, to even expand on this point, to take let's say take the Summers as a case study, right? How do you approach what youth? I forgot about the Summers. I think the last time I watched the Summers was when they did one in Sun City and they had a live performance. I think Somizi was hosting or something like that. That's the last time I heard about the Summers. And then they come back also along with what's the TV one, the Safters. No one cares about this stuff. TV's dead. Music is kind of digital now. But so why are we still hosting events? This are the youth involved in this stuff?
Well, I would think so, because entertainment is a big part of how young people spend their time. And I think it's something that needs to be relooked perhaps from the branding side or from the eventing side of those institutions and organizations, and how they need to better their offering, in a sense. But I do think we are obviously engaging still with music, with entertainment, with TV in some way, even if it's not perhaps it's streaming. So I think it just needs to change and evolve in the ways in which we are consuming entertainment, and perhaps that's where the disconnect is also coming up.
Part of the survey is also around time use, how young people spend their time.
Yes.
You want to talk to us a little bit about where they're spending their time, how they're spending their time? Interesting fact, less time on digital devices.
Yes. So young people are actually spending less time on digital devices. They spend less than 6 hours a day online. What we've also found is that a lot of young people would tend to have smartphones, but then there are also a lot of shared devices in homes nowadays. And what they tend to do online is that they will obviously connect with some of their favorite platforms. But in our research, we really drilled down to how long they spend online, why do they spend that much time online. And because this year it is far less than what it has been in the previous years, we're also finding that it's moving from being online a lot more to being out. So being outdoors, being involved with sports, and perhaps that's also a domino effect from the COVID period that we come from. People really wanting to be out, wanting to be at shopping malls for much longer, and really engaging physically with the world around them. But there has been a decrease in online behavior, I guess. Yeah.
And I wondered about you, Bakh'abantu, because so first of all, I do want to say that I'm so happy because between the two of you, you drop the average age in the room. So, and I love that that you drop the average age in the room. And I wondered how that resonates with you. So when you hear this, are you one of those people that is spending less time on your device and spending more time outside?
Okay, seeing that I work online most of the time, I don't think I'm one of these people. But that's very interesting.
But you're probably a lot more intentional about what you do online, right?
Yes, I am.
Because that is also something that we found quite interesting with the older cohort. So I would say that is above 19 years old. They're far more...
That's the older cohort?
Well...
the oldest cohort. You're the oldest cohort.
In this age group. So from 19 years old up to 30-year-olds, we're finding that they're far more intentional in how they spend their time online. It's not just whimsical. They know why they're on there. They're engaging platforms that they want to be on. So it is a very considered habit that they would have in their
exactly.
online
Like I don't
behavior.
have the TikTok machine. I don't know how that thing
You
works.
don't TikTok?
You don't TikTok.
I don't TikTok. I am the oldest person in this room. I feel like now. I feel like I just became the old grumpy granddad.
Yeah, you most certainly
I
have.
don't TikTok. It started out as China's coming to get us, but now
Through TikTok.
no, through TikTok. Oh wait, do you think it? Okay, you see now I'm gonna go into funny conspiracy theory right now.
I
Okay,
need to hear this.
I'm being facetious, but do you think I'm being facetious? Disclaimer. It's a
We'll
joke.
allow it, I guess.
Yes. So now, do you think it's a coincidence that China unleashes this virus that keeps you indoors and then they give you entertainment to keep you more indoors? And then this thing shoots through the roof.
Oh, wow.
And then you have like Xi Jinping like, keep America down there. And we're going to keep them on the
came
TikTok.
before COVID, man.
Yeah, but it blew up during COVID. Everyone was doing those TikTok dances during COVID. So you see, they launched it and then it failed. And then they're like, what can we do? Let's get people indoors. Yep.
Proper
And then
conspiracy.
the China virus. Yo, that sounds so wrong.
No ways. I am on TikTok. I don't post TikToks, but I watch, and I'm absolutely fascinated. I follow a lot of people who are in Limpopo. I follow some people who are in KZN. I'm absolutely fascinated at some of those kind of lifestyle videos that people are posting on their TikTok. And it's just a window into another person's world. Not everybody is doing a dance challenge on TikTok, right?
No, all I know is
people
it
are
steals your
also
time.
running it like a diary.
Yeah, no, they
What
are
do you do with
serious
your time?
TikToks.
What do you do with your time when you're not working online? What else are you doing? With
So
your
I
time?
read, I game. Yeah. So yeah, I read and I game. That's basically what I do. If I'm not working, I'm reading or gaming. That's where you'll likely find me. And then sometimes I go out with friends. We do the hiking thing, the outdoorsy, like Ms. Mkhwanazi said. So yeah, I am pretty active. I go to the gym every day. I have a set schedule, Sis Phumi. I tell you, I sound so old. I wake up at 4 and then
every day. Wow. What time do you go to bed?
So latest by 8. Then like on the weekends, I push it up till like 9 or 10.
So set schedule. Okay. So you wake up at 4.
Wake up at 4. And then like I mosey around. I can catch up on the news, scroll through my phone. That's 30 minutes. And then I come to studio. And then I prep studio. And then after that, after studio, it's work, 9 to 5. Come back. So I don't eat breakfast. So I have lunch at 12. And then I eat when I come back around about 5-ish. And then I'm done for the day. And then game or read or talk to friends.
Do you have a set schedule?
Yes. Well, it's tricky when
Don't
you have
tell
a
me you wake up
1-year-old.
at 4.
No. Today was the first time in a long time.
So okay then. I'm learning a thing here. Young people with set
like,
schedules.
So Zama Koma brings up a very good point here, Sis Phumi, right? TikTok is the Wikipedia, but videos, right? Lots of information that's not sourced. There's a lot of trust me, bro. There's a lot of like the bro science there. But I do understand that depending on how you curate the algorithm, you should get like very good news feeds. It's like, I'm sure your TikTok doesn't look like my little sister, because then you get words like, they speak in a different language that I don't.
This is why I'm on TikTok, to get the words. Like, so part of why I'm on TikTok to get the words, to understand, to see what people are doing out there. This is also why I'm on, like, in my view, what is probably like rural TikTok. I'm intrigued at those videos of people just going about their day. There's so many videos of kids just going about their day, like what they do, where they go, waking up, all of the stuff.
Their routines.
Completely like blown away by that stuff. But also, it's, for me, fascinating to watch the things that cross over between all of those young people, right?
Yeah.
So all of the things that are the same, whether they are in the Eastern Cape, Western Cape, black, white, whatever, the things that cross over for them completely intrigues me. But I'm also just always watching, and I'm on all the social media.
Yeah.
I'm actually on all the social media. I spend a lot of time online watching and listening. It's also where I get information about on the ground stuff.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things that you wanted to talk about Spaza shops.
Yeah, I did wanted to bring this up. I'm like, so a term that I stole from you.
And you see on TikTok, you see lots of those kids going to the shop. They always going to the Spaza shop getting stuff. Yeah.
So I don't know what this thing is about, but it's been blowing up. And so I follow a lot of news. I am on Twitter, so I'm not on TikTok. So I don't get the drips and drabs. So whatever reach filters through Twitter and Instagram, that's where I pick it up. But now, if you look at these puzzle shops, is there manufactured outrage in the sense that this thing is made up, or are these places really poisoning the youth? No, I'm being serious. Have you seen this, Tippy?
I have, yes.
No, because I don't know, like, because I have friends and they have experienced like we've gone to a shop and they've bought, and then he said the Coke was flat. He returned it, and then they're like, oh yeah, they sell fake goods, so yeah, he returned it. And then there was also like back in the day, my granddad once sent me to the shop. He's like, no, buy the Coke with the red label because the one with the white label doesn't have the same amount of acid or carbonation as the one with the red label. I'm like, but it's bottled at the same place. He's like, no, it's not. So
the Matrix.
Yeah. Is there something here?
The Matrix is at the
The
Spaza shop.
Yeah.
Well, last night before I went to bed, one of the things that one of the people I follow is a designer. Tomi Rekhoto is from the south, far south, the Val. And he was tweeting about like that there's some kind of like outrage and the community is fighting with the shop owners, because we have seen this and we're seeing it all over the news now. And you calling it manufactured outrage. I don't know if it's manufactured outrage.
I was asking, I'm not calling it. I'm asking, is it manufactured outrage? I stole that saying from you, so like I wanted to throw it back to you.
I don't know if it's manufactured outrage. On my way here, listening in the car on the radio, they were also talking about the issue of fake goods. There was a story in the news a couple of days ago about some young people from the Val who got sick.
I think it's like 29 or something like that.
Yeah, who got sick after eating something that they bought, and so the community. But I think it's just one more window into how the cracks of the state, because for me there should be some kind of box ticking exercise that if you're selling food, whether you are a Spaza shop or a ShopRite, there is some kind of inspection that happens. There's somebody that's inspecting the stuff, that way they are, you know, what we do with short dated, they call it short dated.
I don't want to drift off into politics before the voting platforms is put me, right? And
everything is politics.
Everything, thank you. Everything is either chemistry or politics, right?
Interconnected.
Yes, everything is chemistry or politics.
Chemistry.
Yes, and then an offshoot of politics. So it used to be about economics or politics, but then it became chemistry or politics.
Okay.
Yeah, because
tell us more.
Yeah, economics used to influence politics, but now it's the other way around. That's just how I view life. It's chemistry or politics.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. If it's hot, it's chemistry. If it's if you don't have money, it's politics. If it's hot outside and you don't have money to buy an ice cream, it's politics and chemistry and work
colliding.
That is your entire world. Try to debate me on this. You will come second. But anyway, so I don't want to. Do you remember Herman Mashaba, Pumi, right? And he was called xenophobic for his entire stance on illicit goods and
it wasn't his stance on illicit goods.
And illegal, illegal immigrants selling stuff in CBD Johannesburg, because that's when he came after like CBD Johannesburg, Small Street and everything, right? He used to come with cops, like eradicate everyone basically. So I never understood that stance, because everyone selling at Small Street gets them from China Mall. So why aren't we hitting the supply? Why are we hitting it never made sense. That's why I kind of veered into that is xenophobic though, because he's going after the lowest common denominator, the black man who can't do anything, who's just selling this Deki for this Nike, this offshoot Nike for 100 Rand instead of 900 Rand. But we know where he buys it from, because I've been to China Mall, I've seen the containers. So where is the politics to regulate that stuff? Right? Because we do have the laws, don't get me wrong. So we need you only say lack of political will, because the problem is not the law. There is that box. You see that what you're talking about, that checkered box. I've actually looked at it. What do you call it? Say health and safety, health and food safety.
Mm-hmm.
There is that.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we do have that stuff. Like appliances need to be accredited, food needs to be accredited, medicine needs to be accredited. So how do we get illegal goods? To the point where my aunt was telling me that so where we work, you can submit a doctor's note, but because the South African law allows you to see any doctor, anyone, like, and allows for support for any religion, right? So if I want to go see a Sangoma, I need to go see an accredited Sangoma. There are HPCSA accredited Sangomas, not Dr. Matthew, but like actual Sangomas that have a doctor's note.
Yeah.
That have a stamp and have like a practice number.
Mm-hmm.
So you can submit that ulia lawyer, but formally as a sick note. But I had to take days off because I'm fasting or whatever, right? Or I'm waking up at whatever. But yeah, so like I'm saying whatever, not to bash cultural stuff. But yeah, so now there is stuff like that. There are those laws. So why don't we implement them? Lack of political will.
I'm trying to see, like John
Bad
Dog. John Bad Dog. Is that what that
Yes,
is?
John Bad Dog.
Is saying here that they always go after the people and never the power.
Yes.
And it takes the people to challenge the leaders, and to the point that you're making, that they seem to always challenge, get the little man.
The little man.
that's
It's
on
very
the streets.
easy because that man has no recourse. But we know that like probably China Mall is connected to the higher powers that be and whatnot. So yeah. Hi, but we've seen Cyril clap for Xi Jinping when he came. But I'm just saying, Sis Phumi, right? Like, now, just to be serious for a second, but I'm just saying that there is an element where we are not implementing the laws that we have in this country. And as a domino effect, if we started implementing those laws, I'm not for government employing people.
Listen here, it is actually cheaper to go after at the dock.
Yeah.
To go after at the dock when the containers land, to see where the fake stuff is and all of that, than it is to go after 100 people on Small Street.
Exactly, because
but
you just need one person to say these containers are not accredited, but instead we hire the panyazas to go and like basically red ants everyone else in the CBD. I've seen those people run because I used to, in a traumatic state of my life, I used to stay in Durfontein when I went to school there. The raids were hectic.
So our bot here is also talking about Sangomas being registered. I'm wondering who registers the Sangomas.
No, they apply formally to the HPCSA. They need to, like, it's an entire process, is Phumi, right? So the HPCSA, Health Professionals Council of South Africa. So they apply there and then they get a practice number.
So it's 6:34 and want to do headlines. I heard a little birdie told me that, Bakh'abantu, you are the person that curates the headlines.
Yes.
So will you take us through the headlines? Take us through this morning's headlines.
I cannot read on the spot. I cannot read on the spot.
What does that mean? Is that chemistry or politics?
No, that is chemistry. There is something chemically up there.
Well, part of the reason why you can't read on the spot is because you're reading on such a small machine. But you take us through the headlines. Dun, 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 dun.
Okay,
Bakh'abantu and today's headlines. The news you need to know going into the office or going into. Do people who have like online work, because I know a lot of people are still doing online work, do you think they do check-ins where they like have like online water coolers where they talk about
I think
news?
they do, because on these platforms where you work online, there's like you're on not standby. There's a word for it where you click that you're offline, and then there's an entire platform. There's even these professional platforms like Slack where you can communicate with your colleagues, like WhatsApp for work. So I do think they interact. They
WhatsApp for work. Nothing sounds worse. Nothing sounds worse. So Bakh'abantu with today's headlines. 6:36. Starting with
there's pressure mounts on UCT, right, to cancel Steve Hofmeyer concert. So UCT has been criticized once again for
Steve Hofmeyer still does concerts?
Apparently.
And young people at UCT
are forced to listen to this. But basically, like, people stood up against his race, like his LGBTQI comments. He made these comments, I think, about a year ago, But he didn't apologize. That's what I know. He didn't apologize. What he went for, he said he was going to pay the fine. Yeah.
Yeah, when
Look at that.
look at that.
Producer
Ryan
at
has
work.
brought us low tech news headlines printed out, and Ryan is not very environmentally friendly because he didn't print back to back, but here we are. This is the story we're in.
But yeah, UCT has been criticized once again for saying that it is an external party. So they're referring to the Steve Hofmeyr concert that they're hosting as an external party. So they're saying they can't regulate it. They can't kick Steve Hofmeyr off because they just booked the event space and UCT is just hosting.
Okay.
So yeah. So now Steve Hofmeyr was accused of being homophobic, and he is unrepentant on this fact. And his remarks that he made. Yes, he did, and he paid a fine. So I don't know in this case.
Who do you pay the fine to? Who gets this 100,000? So it says here, earlier this year, Hofmeyr agreed to pay 100,000 rand fine over comments he made about the LGBTQIA plus community in April, after being hauled before the Equality Court. Interesting.
So
if you're in UCT, give us a shout out. Let us know.
tell us if you're attending the Steve Hofmeyr concert.
That's amazing. It's amazing to me that Steve Hofmeyr is doing a concert.
So I always throw in a wacky one here, Sis Phumi, right? So Disney linked up with Lyft, like the airplane company, right, to brand their airplanes with like Disney logos and whatnot, and Star Wars, and like a bunch of Marvel stuff. But
so like they're turning the airplane into a billboard.
But I don't understand how that would work. It's not like a bus. You don't see it. It's in the air and it's outside. So this is why I wanted to bring this to you, Sis Phumi. But explain this to me.
Where's the picture?
I forgot the picture. I forgot the picture. There's a very nice picture.
It sounds this story here sounds like definitely somebody getting a kickback of some sort.
It is a kickback, Sis Phumi, because I don't understand how, like, from a marketing point of view, how is this going to help this airline? Like, no, this is
well, it's going to help the airline because they're going to get the fees. But how is it going to help the channel?
Yeah.
Very interesting. I'd like to see that.
But Disney is just spending money, and they're also going bankrupt currently. Like they dropped, like, I don't know, like Disney Plus. Do you on all the socials? I'm sure you have all these stuff.
But this is an interesting headline for me. Nigerian paramilitary raids birthday party for gay people.
I was scared about that one.
Yes. Tell me more.
So what happened is here, the Nigerian government targeted the LGBTIQ community. They raided this gay wedding, and then they basically arrested everyone who was gay and they deemed that was gay that attended this party. This comes from a law that they passed, an anti-gay law in 2014. So it's illegal to be gay there. So he said 59 men were arrested, including the 21 who confessed to being gay. So those ones are definitely going into prison, and 17 women. So these people attended this gay wedding and then they were all arrested, and then 21 of them confessed that they were gay, and therefore they're going to be put away.
I'm interested to confessed that they were gay.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Here's the picture, Sis Phumi.
Oh, look at that.
Of the airline.
That is weird.
Please explain to me from a marketing.
For those of you who can't see it, right? I don't know. The on the far left is Wish. There's a Spider-Man. There's a Mickey Mouse. There's what's her name? What's her
Elsa,
name from Elsa? And I don't know what the last image is, but it's on the side of the plane.
Yeah,
that is weird.
And how is that supposed to? Let me just upload another one, and then I am fascinated by this stuff. Like, look, this one has a Black Panther and Moana,
and it's got Baby Yoda. Is that Baby Yoda?
Baby Yoda,
or
Grogu.
Is that really? No, it's Grogu.
It's Grogu. Yes,
Grogu. So you know what this does make me think about, and we never spoke about this, Ntombi, within your survey when you were doing around the coolest brands in particular. Do these things matter to young people? What the brands say they stand for, or where they are seen? Do they matter to young people?
Absolutely, they matter. I think when it comes to community building as well, it is a very um, attractive part for young people to think about in how brands are actually uplifting them as individuals as well as their communities. So apart from big brand campaigns and all of that, really what you do in the spaces around me matters to young people. So we do pay attention to, I guess, your billboards on air flights. We definitely do pay attention to those things, and young people are very cognizant of how those things actually connect with them or not. And when it's a miss, you will know that it's something that didn't work.
I feel like when it comes to young people, you get punished for the misses, but you don't get any. Like I didn't study this, so I don't have the research in front of me. But I feel like you get punished for the misses, and you don't get props for like when you get it on brand. But I disagree as a young person. I once went to Pizza Hut before I started my gym
What
journey.
do you disagree with as a young person?
As a young
Just
person, as a young person, I don't want like Pizza Hut was telling me that they reshaping management into womanagement. I'm like, it doesn't. I just want my pizza. I don't need a lesson right now because they had like throughout the menu, because the menus are digitalized, and then there's this branding. Wow, womanagement. I'm like, I just want to see the deal.
I think in marketing, you will always have those disconnects. Certain messages might not align with certain brands in who they are as brands and businesses and what they stand for. And I think that is also, there's always been that debate around what should brands stand for? Should brands always have a voice? Especially when it comes to like social issues and all that. Should every brand comment? Should every brand try be the change, make the change? And I think there will always be a hit and a miss in that kind of situation.
No, I agree. Like, and so when I used to study accounting, Phumi, I did marketing. And then in marketing, we did learn that like even Coca-Cola suffered from not advertising. So the biggest question they asked us, do you think advertising works? Do you think seeing a billboard every day works, right? In the most rural places of Africa, you'll find a Coca-Cola billboard. Like I am talking from the rural Eastern Cape to rural Limpopo to rural Kenya. Well, Kenya is not rural. It's like, it's like a great place. But yeah, so in these places, you would find Coca-Cola. So Coca-Cola once thought that that they would save money on advertising because they spend millions, I'm sure it's billions now, on branding and advertising. So they once launched this campaign like, okay, we're not going to advertise. Everyone knows what a Coca-Cola is. That year, their sales dropped. Pepsi beat them. And it was directly linked to them not advertising. When out of sight, out of mind. So I do understand the whole you telling me that woman management, but I just want my pizza.
You just want your pizza. Well, pizza. I'm looking here. Sanele says that Lyft serves gin and tonic on board. And how am I going to have my drink in peace knowing that Mickey Mouse is right next to me? He says.
Oh, boy.
No, but I mean, for me, the thing about, and because I'm in marketing and because I am in a lot of ways in the business of communication, I will always believe that marketing makes a huge difference, because when you are not talking to your customer, they forget about you. It's like being in a relationship, right? It's like being in a relationship. If you're not talking to your partner, they forget about you. And whoever's talking to them suddenly becomes so much more interesting. So I will always believe in advertising. I just don't know if a plane is such a good billboard.
I don't think so, because even if your kid is kicking and screaming, I want to go on the Mickey Mouse plane, Dad. It doesn't matter what's inside.
Hey! Wow! Now that you put it that way.
But
Pesta power, that's what they call it.
Yeah. But it's such a... It's 30 minutes? I think you can bear it.
No. Pesta power. When you've got a little people. Am I right?
Yep. What? Yep. Young people have a very big influence on their parents.
So you got the consensus in the room that this might work? Nah, I don't think
this might work. Speaking of young people having a big influence, it's part of your research was also the amount of influence that young people have over the purchasing power of the people who actually work
The decision
As I roll,
makers in
as I
air quotes.
roll my eyes,
Yeah.
the decision makers being. Talk to us a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So we found that, I mean, we all know young people do have that influence on their parents' purchases. But to be quite specific, we have seen that they have great influence in how they bank. So banking institutions, handling of money, petrol
Like our
stations and
seventy,
grocery
Dota, but you
stores.
making these
Yeah. They have that high influence. And what was quite interesting is that in how parents purchase clothing, and I guess the frequency in which they visit shopping malls is, I guess two of the biggest influences that young people have on their parents. So, that quick drop by the mall after school is coming from your child. It's not you. So yeah, we saw that there was a big rise in the younger generations actually influencing their parents into those behaviors and those habits.
Well, I get it. I really do. I really do, because for me it was banking. I've always used the same bank since I was a child. But the reason why I convinced my mom, because it looked cool. It just, like, as a kid, it looked cool. And then luckily the bank doesn't disappoint me. So when we went digital, we went, I've always had the same bank account. So it went like, oh, okay, cool. You guys have online banking. I don't think we should be going to, because we used to go Saturday every day to go do deposit slips. I'm like, I think there's a better way, Mom. Why are they computers here? And then she signed up for online banking, and then all of that stuff just moved, and then we stopped going to town. So,
but the funny thing is actually that we picked up that teens, tweens, and young adults are visiting branches and ATMs more frequently this year. It is a bit like, really?
I was not in the survey. Maybe. I do not visit an ATM. So, this is my wallet. Please just show that to the camera.
No, I was gonna.
That is my wallet, right? It has, I think, about 4 things. You can open it, just pull it at the bottom. This is for me.
I'm gonna give it back to you, and then I'm gonna put you on camera.
So this is my
so you
wallet.
can do a
it has
demo.
4 things.
It's like a
yes.
It's like a product demo.
Yeah.
Yes, it's like a product demo. This is not product.
You've been paid.
Yeah. So I have my bank card, because just in case. I have my other bank card, and then I have my ID and license. That's all. 4 things. Everything else is digital. My bank card, all these loyalty, because every shop has a loyalty, whatever, right? It's here.
Zingy dinner.
Yeah. Checkers, don't. I call them smart shoppers only because Pick and Pay introduced them to me. So I call them smart shopper cards. And then someone will be like, no, it's your Checkers extra savings. Don't. I'm like, hey, it's just this. You want it here. Clicks, club card, I have it. Everything is digital. I do most of my shopping online. Checkers 60/60. I don't get standing in lines. I sound so old. I sound so grumpy. I don't get standing in lines. I don't get ATMs. I have walked away from an ATM. I was sharing this story with Ryan because he also had the same thing. When you walk in, you see a line. No, walk out. Your time is too precious to be standing in lines.
Because you're going to spend the time gaming.
Yes. Thank you, Sis Ruby, right?
Then, okay, speaking of gaming and social media, one more headline. Do we have time for one more headline? The meta headline. Because this, when I also heard this on the radio, that their numbers came out.
Yeah, no.
They're doing much better than they've done in a long time.
Yes, but this is because they've been pushing threads on Facebook. So they've been advertising threads. So this is Meta pushing thread posts on Facebook. So this is not the people signing up to threads. This is people interacting with threads through Facebook, because it's all linked, right? It's like how I see threads on my Instagram profile. So I'm guessing this is the same thing for Facebook. I use the fact that I am guessing because I have not been on Facebook for the past 10 years. I dropped out in 2013 when the day I got a friend request from an adult. I was like, I am done with this life.
Who was that adult?
It was a colleague of a parent. I'm like, no.
A colleague
of my parent. Of my mom.
Yes. Wow.
Yes. So it's like it shows you they started doing that whole when we got all location devices and whatnot, like, oh, people in your area, people you might know, mutual friends and whatnot. So I had, I think, close to 400 friend requests. I'm like, nah.
400 friend
Because I
requests.
took the word friend as in the literal sense. Like, I think I need to talk to you and have a conversation with you. And then we establish a friendship. But if we're an acquaintance, you're not on my Facebook. So I never had a high number of Facebook. So then that ticker, every time I used to log on, I used to see that red 400. I'm like 400 plus. I'm like, I don't need this in my life. So I just deactivated my account from 2013. Done.
I have Facebook.
Yes,
and I have it took me almost 2 years to accept the friend request, but I now have my mother as a Facebook friend. And yo, my mother's Facebook is lit.
I've heard this. You mentioned it the other week. You're like, hey, she posts this lady. She's like, she's at a brunch. She's going out with the girls.
My mother's Facebook is lit. On Saturday, this past Saturday, we went to a friend of mine. Her mom turned 70. She had a big birthday party for her. My mother's Facebook. That girl was posted. And then we stayed to watch the rugby. And I was just like, yeah, this girl's Facebook is lit. So I have my mom on Facebook and I go to her Facebook often to find out
what's happening in her life.
Yeah, to find out what she's up to. Because sometimes you don't. But so now Facebook serves it to be all the time. But I'm not sure if I want her to be on Instagram. Although I do think as an Instagram girly, she could be
she could get those. She could be an influencer.
She could be popping. She could be like, I don't know. Do they have lifestyle influencers for people above a certain age?
That's why there's an open market, baby.
Tell us. So I am very interested to know some kind of top brands of the coolest brands that you, because this was a couple of weeks ago, right? That you had the big reveal of all of these brands.
Yeah.
So talk to us about some of these cool brands. Are we a cool brand? Is Cliff Central a cool brand?
Yeah. Yes, you are a cool brand. Let's just get that out of the way. You are a cool brand. So yes, we had our coolest brands big reveal about a couple of weeks ago, and I guess maybe it might be interesting to look at some of the brands that had some significant shifts this year, right? So some of the brands that really moved up pretty well in the categories that they were shortlisted in, and I think one to mention is Nike has actually been the overall brand and winning that category for the past 8 years, and yeah, they've always kind of taken that top spot, which has always been a very impressive thing for them to achieve every year. And then we have like Switch energy drinks, who moved up from 7th in the coolest energy drink category to number 1.
Wow.
Yeah, they moved from 7th to number 1, and we really think it's because of, you know, how they play an integral part again in meeting young people through their passion points, sponsoring sports and arts at every level. So we really now see how brands can be elevated through those actions that they take.
Wow.
Go slow is also an interesting
Go
case.
slow.
Go slow.
Sure.
Yes, go slow. Yes, go slow. The maize snacks. So they moved
Which,
from,
interestingly, you find where?
in
In the Spaza shop.
Because
You don't find Go Slow at the Checkers.
This once was a big thing. So for me, I don't know if it was in the Eastern Cape alone, but like this is when we hit high school. So in the 2012 so.
Mhm.
So now Go Slows were banned in my town because because they didn't have a list of ingredients at the back.
Yes.
For the longest time, they never had a list of ingredients. So remember when there were still those small packets, they didn't have a list of ingredients, didn't have amounts. So people were like, this is poison. And then the outrage reached the Black community, and the Black community, I get burnt down shops.
Yeah. I was actually going to mention that with Go Slow, it's interesting because their whole packaging and evolution of their brand has actually grown significantly, especially in the South African, I guess, township market, or, you know. So they really have grown their brand over the years. They've shifted from 11th to 3rd. in our categories this year, and their success really comes from embracing that township culture and township distribution channels, and really understanding local culture within their target audience. And that is really, really commendable. That it is a brand that knows how to listen to their niche market, and that has really given them that upper hand.
Just a quick question here, Sis Ntombi. Did you say Nike was the coolest brand?
Yes, overall.
So for me, this is an example of a Nike shoe. I don't think that's cool. I'm not a style icon by any means.
You can't start, Bakh'abantu, you can't start by disqualifying yourself.
No,
you can't start by saying,
I am part of this youth. You see, this is what I say.
I don't think this is cool.
I don't think I was invited to take this. So can you please send me a link to this?
I definitely will. Or you can visit our website.
You plug that. What website is this? Because I disagree with this stuff.
Why would? You will find everything on there.
Well, and also because with very little time left, I also found it quite fascinating that when you start the survey, you don't actually prompt the people, the respondents about any brand. So it's just, this is what
literally
they come up with.
What is memorable, the brands that are your favorite, that have that sense of salience in your life. It's absolutely unprompted. And that is the whole point, right? Is for you to let us know who you think is worth that top spot, who you think is actually connecting with you in your life. So we intentionally do an unprompted portion of the study and how we do the coolest brand survey.
That's pretty cool, man.
It is quite cool, isn't it?
It is.
So I wanted to know, do you guys remember the term black diamonds?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember when people were like, it started out, it was a cool thing. People were called black diamonds. They were up and coming, dun. And so you guys also, Ntombi, have categorized your people, all of the respondents, into 4 categories. And it's not just tweens, teens, and very quickly, what are the 4 categories?
So in our segmentation, which, like I said, is a double click into the whole research, we have 4 archetypes that we've identified. And again, these are archetypes that show common characteristics across all the ages, right? Common behaviors, common shared outlooks, and senses of fulfillment. The 4 are curious explorers, and these are they're really about embracing life. They're quite enthusiastic and positive about life. They, enjoy opportunities, and maintaining an optimistic perspective on life. We've got emerging optimists, and they're quite resilient and conscious of what they want to do in their lives and what they need in their lives. And they're actively paving their way to thriving. And then we've got opportunity seekers. They have a firm grasp of life's intricacies and complexities, and they navigate thoughtfully and with caution and discretion despite external hurdles. So what your load shedding, your water sheddings and whatnot, they're quite cautious about how they navigate their lives considering those challenges that exist. And then we've got survival pursuers, and they're very much in pursuit of economic stability, their desires around safety and security and equitable allocation of rights. So they're very conscious about what is happening and what they're not being fulfilled in their lives for. And I guess with survival pursuers, the interesting part is that they're probably the most balanced archetype in terms of including all the age groups. So they are a good view of the common characteristics across the age groups. The the curious explorers tend to be the younger cohort, made up mostly of the younger cohorts, hence their sense of optimism. They're a lot more sheltered from external factors. They don't experience the difficulties of life and adulting as directly as the older cohorts do. So I think it's very interesting to start looking at those different archetypes and segments in that way.
So, survival pursuers. But it's not as catchy as Black Diamond.
Yeah, it's not as catchy as Black Diamond. Young up and comer.
Young up and comer.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Ntombi, for coming through and
Thank you for
chatting
having
with us
me.
about this. I hope that they're listening. Like I'm listening to these things and I'm wondering if like the BUSAs and EFFs and DAs are listening to this kind of stuff and taking it into consideration when they're packaging their communication. We are about to see a whole lot more billboards, a whole lot more flyers, a whole lot more advertising, talking particularly to young people to get them out to vote and maybe change the destiny of where we are. And so this has been very interesting. Thank you for waking up so early and coming through. Bakh'abantu wakes
Anytime.
up this early anyway. He's going to stay with us into the next hour. Coming up on the Burning Platform, we have a returning champion. Bakh'abantu is going to stay with me,
Yes.
but also
a young
Leeto.
up-and-comer and a returning champion.
Leeto Ntoba is going to be on the other side. So do not go away. What am I supposed to press now?
This week on the Auto Trader podcast.
What I'm starting to believe is there are hundreds, if not thousands, of plants around the world, right? We've got one in South Africa. I think there are 3 plants in Africa for VW. But there are hundreds in Europe. So all of those plants are going to have to move to producing electric vehicles. So think about this. As they ramp down the production of ICE vehicles, they ramp up the production of electric vehicles. Nobody's really going to want to
be the first to like try it out.
No, nobody's really going to want to build an entire new plant. You're going to want to use what you've got. It's cheaper, right? So you're going to have to change the plant. I mean, in this plant, there's no space to put an extra production line. I mean, the thing weaves through that plant like a train track.
Yeah.
So to change the plants in Europe, I would imagine that's what the future strategy would be, which means they're going to ramp down ICE production, ramp up EV production.
It's not like a switch. It's kind of a gradual process.
It's a process.
It kind
Yes.
of gets that way.
Catch us every Monday at 9 a.m. on YouTube and on autotrader.co.za.
To our valued partners, thank you for being part of our journey in leveraging the power of podcasting as part of your marketing mix. The explosion of podcasts and vidcasts is more than a trend, it's a meaningful way to create lasting connection. CliffCentral.com is a unique hybrid of live streaming and podcasting that brings valuable experience and insight. If your business isn't doing podcasting, contact us at contact@cliffcentral.com.
And it is the Burning Platform. We did a Burning Platform like theme song.
There used to be one, like when it used to go boom, like and then explodes, but then
Do you think?
But
do you
then
think
Gareth
it was,
exploded and then
Do you think that explosion was repossessed when the
yes, yes, also because Gareth exploded, now the explosion is gone. Nice meeting you, Mr. Leeto.
Leeto, welcome.
Good morning. How are you?
Are you growing your dreadlocks back after cutting
No.
them? Now you're bringing them back. Where's Alangmo?
No, the barber said this is the style of the young people, so that's what I'm not used to cutting my. I'm not used to cutting my hair, so the barber just like, okay, this is how young people look now when they cut their hair. I'm gonna cut their hair this way and then sort of like swire them like the dreads. And I'm like, okay, I'll go with it. And when I got to campus, the students were like, "Ah, sir, you look good." I'm like, "Okay, I'll stick with it."
Oh, the students have approved. This
Yes,
is
no.
wonderful.
The
The
students
youth has
approved the look.
approved.
Coolest
Coolest
brand
brand.
on campus. Say.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming on to chat with us. And I know you've got a whole lot of things that you want to talk about. But I actually, because you come from a mining town, I thought that we should start with the big mining story that has been developing this week, the Gold One story. And I see it was also on your list of things that you wanted to talk about. For those of you listening who don't know what this is, Gold One is a mining company out in Springs here in Johannesburg, about 50 kilometers outside of Johannesburg. And over the past couple of days, I think since Sunday, there has been what is being called a hostage situation where a whole lot of miners have been kept underground, and this is where it's being called a hostage situation by the SAPS.
Yeah.
Some of the miners have been brought onto the surface as of yesterday,
Yeah, about 200 or so.
but it seems that it is actually a conflict between the National Union of Mine Workers, which is the recognized union in that mine, and AMCU, which, as you will remember, became very big kind of in 2014 with the Marikana incident, is actually wanting to become the new recognized mine. Leeto, you go first because you wanted to talk about this and labor relations in mines in South Africa.
Yeah. So firstly, like, I think we must give it a little historical context, right? Mining sit-ins are not actually uncommon in this country. When NUM came up, especially when it came up from the coal mines into the gold mines, the gold mines are typically the ones that you have not open cast mining, but you have straight down into the ground. The first time they did that,
Shaft mining.
yeah, shaft mining. The first time they came into the gold mines, there were several sit-ins in the gold mines to demand better wages and better living conditions. Because if you remember, way back during the apartheid era, miners used to live in hostels and not at home. So there were those kind of demands that miners get to have homes and all of those things. And so there were sit-ins, especially so when a new
So where sit-in is when the mine workers refuse at the end of their shift to come up onto the surface.
yes. And the mine wouldn't notice for a few days, just like they did now, because no, because these people started the sitting on Sunday and didn't
Yeah.
come out. They only noticed like on Tuesday, like, wait, there's like a few 500 people missing. So because different shifts mine different parts of the shaft, right? And so you wouldn't notice if we don't come back up.
500 people don't come back up.
Yes. And so the problem then is, so the new up and coming unions, whenever they become desperate, they do a sit-in. And I knew something of this sort was sort of coming down the line, especially with mines that insisted on practicing the closed shop model to say, no, we only recognize NUM and we don't want to say anything to AMCU, right? And AMCU started to grow deep inroads with the miners, especially the people who work below ground. And so the supervisors, the ship supervisors, the surveyors, and all of those are always NUM, but the majority of the people would be the miners that go underground. And so that was going to be the impasse. And miners have now seen Marikana and thought, well, if we stay on the surface and protest, either one of two things happen: we come and get shot, or the employer then threatens people and say, if you don't go into the mine, we don't pay you. So let's stay in the mine and see if they pay us still. And so that's the sort of mentality that goes behind it. But as well, I think it's problematic to have the closed shop clause in our labor relations in South Africa, because it is a remnant actually that was brought by the Chamber of Mines to keep NUM out. And so the same NUM is using one of the tools. And that was the funny thing, right? That Julius always says, that the ANC is using the tools that were oppressing them to sort of charge him with crimes. And it's the same thing. The tools that were used to oppress and to keep out NUM are being used to keep out the AMCU sort of union, and everyone is sort of not doesn't recognize the danger in the closed shop model, I think, in South Africa, especially when it comes to mines, and how dangerous the situation could become. Because remember, even if we're all going down into the mine, if we belong to different unions, even if I don't belong to a union and you're sitting in, my leaving is a betrayal of that cause, right? And then so the narrative can change very quickly into a sitting becoming a hostage situation. And so,
well, this is the thing that I kind of listening to this developing story on a couple of news networks over the past couple of days. And you're right, on Sunday, is I kind of keep thinking, what is the difference? How do you know that the people that are sitting in down there are actually sitting in of their own volition?
Yes.
And or are being compelled to stay because of a power struggle between these two unions. And maybe, Leeto, you want to explain to some of our listeners what a closed shop model is, because not everybody knows what this, we're not all from mining towns, so we may not know what a closed shop model is and what that actually how that works for the miners and the employer, as the mining houses are called.
right. So with the closed shop model, so let's take it. We are mine A, right? So mine A finds itself presented with a union. Let's say it's the NUM that comes first, right? So NUM comes first and is the preferential union and is told that and presents to the mind that we represent the majority of the workers, right? Solidarity, for instance, would come in and say, no, we don't represent the majority of the workers, but we represent a certain class of workers. So it would be the supervisors and all of those. And so we would like to be in a different negotiating bracket because our people are in a different pay model and pay market, right? So the preferential negotiating partner would be the NUM. And so AMCU comes in, they get the majority of the underground workers, for instance, to join them, right? The problem comes when it comes for wage negotiations, which probably happened 2 to 3 months ago and have been continuing. The mine then starts to negotiate with NUM, which doesn't have the lion's share of members anymore. NUM agrees like they used to. So the problem that the miners actually have with NUM was they started to get cozy with the mines. And so if Leeto was sent to go and negotiate, I negotiate. During my negotiation period, I'm softened up by the mine. So I'm taken to Kaiser Chiefs matches. I'm given clothes. I'm given a car by the mine in order for me to be affable to the mining house, right? And so the next step is I get some nominal shares. So I get some shares while I agree to your wages, right? Now, in this instance, remember, AMCU is very clear about its position on wages. 12,500 or anything close to that, right? If you're inching closer to 12,500, AMCU loves you, right? And so now the agreement is given to AMCU, to NUM. They sign on behalf of AMCU members as well, and then come out of the process and say, see, if you wanted us to consider yours, you must give us your membership again and stop going to AMCU. And this is where the problem begins. The AMCU members are usually very militant, right? Because most of them are fresh upstarts from the Eastern Cape, the Free State. And so when they come into the mine, they come with the militancy of saying, strike action and no negotiation, especially with NUM, because at times Solidarity would come to NUM and say, since you're the preferential person and they have a difference with the employer, you take our part of the bargaining with you and tell them our supervisors want this kind of pay raise. And so we include Solidarity's offer with NUM's offer. But
and what do you make? So, and what do you make of this current situation at Gold One, where there is, I mean, even this morning, they were still calling it a hostage situation. And is it really a hostage situation, or is AMCU taking over?
It's AMCU taking over. So remember, a lot of people then, the problem is, everyone keeps saying, I heard a labor relations expert saying, well, you have to take the process that's in the courts, because AMCU has taken the process to the courts. They've taken their membership numbers to the courts to be declared as the major union. The big problem is the mine doesn't want to recognize, which the law says they should. If I bring you my numbers and I bring you my memberships, you should recognize. And so it's actually the three parties are having a huge problem with each other, right? And so this situation, it's going to look like it is a sit-in because most of the miners don't want to come up, right? They want to stay there and they want their point to be put across. They want their wage negotiations to go ahead. Because if you're thinking externally, right, you're feeling the inflation as a normal employee of a company. Imagine what a miner
as a normal
feeling.
South African, we are all feeling the pinch.
Right?
Cyril's economy.
And the way miners would remove the pinch from themselves with the small wages that they get is working on Sunday evenings and going for the overtime, right?
It's
and
overtime. Yeah.
Yes. And they do extreme overtime. They work almost double shifts almost every 4 days. And that's the safety limit that they can work. And if they're working on a Sunday, that means that they've worked their 4 days, had the mandatory 2 days of rest, and then had to go and work on Sunday. And so not coming up on Sunday evening is a way to protest, to say, but even with these shifts, we're not making enough money.
We're not making enough money. Bakh'abantu, you wanted to add something
No,
to that?
I wanted to ask, what does it take to be a union? Do you just need numbers? Like you're saying, you just...
So to be a union, it's not just the numbers. You need to register. There's a huge registration period that takes about a year. And that's why in Marikana, at first, AMCU was just a name union and it wasn't registered. They were in the process of registering the union. Right? And so that's why, for the most part, in Marikana, they weren't recognized because they had no registration status. But now they do have the registration status. And so you can have a union, Bakh'abantu, and so, and unionize the people at Cliff Central. The numbers aren't the problem, right? So because you are going to be the first union there and have Phumi and 3 others, you are then going to be the first union and you would be the closed shop. If somebody else comes in, even though they have bigger numbers, they must prove to Cliff Central now that they have the bigger numbers. And so that becomes the struggle between the unions, and no sort of multilateral negotiations happen.
I think that the additional, like...
No, I was going to say
last week, my current theme being it's all about the money, right? It's all about the Benjamins.
It is all about the Benjamins. And Joker's Atheist brings up a good point. You speak about a sit-in, Leeto, right? But so the way the law works, if your rights infringe on mine, then your rights become moot. You can't infringe on someone else's rights.
Your rights end where my nose begins.
Exactly. Your right to punch ends where my nose begins. So it is a sit-in, but if 200 people escaped and they're using the word that we just escaped the shaft, then it is a hostage situation by definition.
So okay, it is a hostage situation,
yes.
Right? Because of, but also not just because of the way in which the mine is sort of like is shaped, right? If we don't want to move from one part of the mine, there's literally one other exit which is extremely dangerous, right? And that's why the people who escaped didn't want to use that option at first. So the major way to get in and out of the mine is through the catch, so the elevator for the mine, and that's the safest way. And so if we're saying we're not going out, right? And remember, we don't all mine the same part in the shaft. We're at different parts, and so that was the difficulty that the police said. Tactically going in would be a problem because these people aren't in the same place; they're in different places. And so remember, in some places, there's a guy that drives like a mini train down there in the mine, and if that guy says he's not going out and parks the train at a certain place, the majority of you might be trapped in another place and can't go past the train. So it just depends on what the mechanics are underground, right? It could be just one guy who parked the mining
trolley in,
the trolley in the wrong place, and now we're all stuck, right? And so the other exit is there, but that exit is usually one very dangerous because it's not very structured. It's susceptible to cave-ins. Only one person can pass at a time. If you're in a row, you suffer the risk of suffocating. Usually, illegal miners are hanging out around that part of the shaft and are trying to go in through that way or are putting food through that way. So it could be very dangerous. And so I think that's why they didn't want to use that option, but finally had to use it, right? Because if you're saying you're escaping and you go to the decline, that's what they call it. If you're at the decline, the people who are holding you hostage could just go and get you because you're going in 1-1 and there are 200 of you. Right?
And I think definitely one of the things that has come to my mind over the past couple of days, listening not just to this particular developing story, but also thinking about, because as it happens in South Africa, when a story of this nature comes to the fore, this is when we start having the conversations that say, maybe we need to be rethinking about labor relations, not just, and in this instance, not just the closed mine, the closed shop experience, but also a more inclusive way of dealing with the labor market. More than just one union being represented. And it's just, for me, the thing that has come to my mind is how archaic the system is and remains at the moment. So all that they've done is they've just replaced one union, which only negotiated for a small strata of the employees, with one that maybe negotiates for the majority, and the majority has shifted in what they want, and they've shifted to a new union. But the fact that you're only willing to deal with one as the employer, you're only willing to deal with one union, is what is the problem here.
I think it's a huge problem. And the fact that we have no sense of multilateralism in South Africa, even in the private sector, right? Because the private sector is this bastion of efficiency. If we had multilateralism, when you negotiate, right? Because every time I've listened to mine negotiations, even when NUM was in the fore, every time Solidarity would agree to an agreement and NUM would still be sticking out, they now look like the crazy people, right? And then now you also have to look into what they're getting. And usually the holdout from NUM would not be for the people's wages. The wage would be stagnant and the mine would not want to budge, but would be holding out because of the number of shares I'm getting. And so then there's a problem. Or I haven't gotten a Mercedes, I've gotten a Toyota. Or maybe I haven't gotten the deal to transport the miners in my quantum. And so that would be the difference between the mine and the mine workers. And so the problem with AMCU now is that it's not been given the opportunity to even get to the negotiating table.
To be in the room.
Exactly, because for the most part, the problem actually with emerging unions is not that they're not at the table. The problem with emerging unions is it's still miners, right? NUM, you'd get Zwelinzima Vavi character, somebody who's been voted for provincially, who now has a big house, who has a nice place in Johannesburg. Because one of the NUM members from Welcome had a huge house in Johannesburg, right? He had 6 cars. When he passed away, it was a huge scandal here, and everybody was like, wait, we thought he lived in Welcome, and everyone's like, no, he doesn't live here. He lives in Johannesburg. Because that's what the mine needs to give them, right? And so on the other end, the actual problem with new unions is you're going to be negotiating with miners who are actually not really astute at negotiating, who don't have the tactics locked down. They negotiate like miners. Most of them actually even need translators when it starts out. And so that process, I think, would have been such a great basis to build a solid basis for starting new ways of negotiating. Because the way we're negotiating now is the same way we negotiated almost 50 to 60 years ago. And so that for me is so bad in a South Africa that we're saying is growing, but it's not actually growing at all in the way we're thinking about making this country better and the new ways we could make it better.
Okay, so devil's advocate, Mr. Leeto, right? Not everyone can get a seat at the table. Unfortunately, not everyone's voice does matter. The majority does rule. Yes, the majority can shift, says Phumi. So the Noom workers now go to AMCU, right? Because AMCU represents their needs and Noom has sold out. So, but what about the end goal here? Because if you're going to drive the business out, everyone loses. Because the way I'm looking at it from a business point of view, it's not, if you're not mining for me, then it's not profitable. So then I can shut down shop.
Right.
Then
So
what happens? What happens to the economy? Because okay, so just a slight comment that you had, what you said, private sector is a bastion. It is, because it is the only effective tool that we have shown that can build an economy. Communism hasn't. Capitalism and the free market has shown, whether we like it or not, and there is a place for unions and regulation and whatnot and workers' rights. But at the end of the day, make money, then everyone benefits. A rising tides lifts all boats.
Right. So let me sort of first push back on the not everyone can make it to the table, because strangely enough, the mine actually said to AMCU workers, while we're waiting for you to become the major union, workers can individually come to the table and negotiate their wages. So actually everyone can come to the table. The mine just refuses for everyone to come to the table in the way that they choose is best represents them. And that's the problem, right? And so that's what I'm saying. It's not about the private sector not being a bastion of the economy. It's being a bastion of efficiency, because this is just an efficiency issue. Which is the most efficient option? To get everyone to negotiate at the same time? Or
no, most efficient option is divide and conquer, which is what they're doing.
So when you do,
that's not efficient.
Exactly, because
no,
you're
for
going
the
to piss
business
off one
point of
party.
view, for the business point of view, if you break up the union, you can wring out more work from the workers.
But
if you break up the majority, like what's bigger, 1 or 5? 1 is bigger.
Listen, hey. But now what you're saying is, if you break up the majority, right?
Yes.
But the problem is the majority is not willing to work. And the people that you are left with are not the people who actually go to the rock face and try to get the gold out. And that's why that's why AMCU's holdout now is so significant. Is that those people are the ones who you depend to get your product, right? The fancy pants people are the ones who escaped. They're useless to the mine. With their escape, they can't be used in another shift. That's the problem, right? And so here's the issue, right? So let's talk about the economy and the company. Actually, mines in South Africa are that's why I'm saying they're very efficient when it comes to a lot of things, right? The Chamber of Mines, actually, when you go to be a shareholder, when the mine is in development, you are told that we account for a strike season. There's going to be a time where we're going to piss off the miners and they're going to stop mining. Your profits are going to not be affected. You know why? Immediately after a strike, so a mine has daily targets, right? And literally, some workers would not even come. The mine would refuse for workers to come out before they hit their target. So the cash would not go down to go and get them if the target is not hit, right? And so the targets go up after strike season. And so you work longer hours after strike season. You work more overtime after strike season. And actually, safety conditions are actually harsher. It's more dangerous to go mine after strike season. And so the efficiency is amazing. There's no shareholder of a mine that has ever said, oh no, the miners are striking, my profits have gone lower. Their profits are always consistent. They're always the same, whether or not mining stops for even 6 to 7 months. They don't care.
You know, the one thing that you're raising is about the fact that it's still an old way of doing things, and that today they still do things the way that they were done 50, 60 years ago, which for me is an interesting thing. I want to do a slight pivot to something else that you raised in the stuff that you wanted to talk about. Speaking of doing the same thing over and over again, is you wanted to talk about the government in Bezos. We're seeing it a lot here in Johannesburg. We're seeing it a lot here in Gauteng, because we have an incredibly active Premier in Panyaza Lusufi, who is running all sorts of schemes. And you can just see that it's because we are in, we're in voting season. And so you wanted to talk about these ANC imbizos that are masked as government activity, Leeto.
It's actually totally disgusting to me, right? Because if you look at it, so the ANC has no manifesto ideas. This is the funniest part about the elections that are coming up. The ANC is actually not presenting a new manifesto. What they're saying is they're presenting a manifesto review, right? They're putting out NEC members and the newly elected Youth League members. The NEC members, the provincial heads, and the president are going around and are doing the same thing. This is the best we've done for you in the manifesto. This is the rest of the manifesto that we couldn't deliver. We're going to deliver that next. It's like a series. Like we're saying, no, next time on Dragon Ball Z, we're going to deliver this. Right?
Yeah.
So my biggest problem then is, if you look at the ANC posters for the NEC members and the government posters for the Mbizos look exactly the same. And the sitting arrangement is actually very similar. So when the president is standing there, it's all the parliamentarians sitting in their ANC regalia, not government regalia. So you find NG Museha sitting there with her Women's League regalia without the badge. They're very smart about doing that. But you can clearly see that this is an ANC rally, right? And what they're doing is they're no longer going to the areas that embarrassed them before. So remember, Cyril did this before and came back with egg on his face. He went to the Northwest, he came to the Free State and went to Kroonstad and went to...
You went to the Northern Cape.
Yeah, he went to places where people really have no hope, right? If you go to Kroonstad, people have to travel from Kroonstad to Welkom to come to work. So almost an hour travel just to get to work, because in Kroonstad there's no jobs. And he went there thinking, he said, no, there's a veteran, we're going to place a headstone. And people told him to leave. And so he's no longer going back to those places. He's now going and showing off a dam in Potchefstroom that might come to work in a year and a half. And so when you do that, for me, it's so insidious, because the people in this country are tired of the show and tell. But most of the people can't tell that they're being taken to a horse and pony show. And that's why
I think the people can tell. I think the people are tired. I think the people are tired of the fact that this is you just trot out the same stuff every now and again. And I think the people can see through that.
No, the people are tired, but the people can't put on a finger on what the deception is. Because I ask people, are you tired of this? They say yes. And I say, what is it that you're really tired of? What are they doing that's so wrong? And they can't put their finger on, this is actually deception, right? Because here where I live, in this joke of a town, it was actually on the news, national news, that 75 of our municipal vehicles have been attached, including dump trucks and all of these things. And the mayor goes to other towns to go borrow cars, right? And then, funny enough, during the news broadcast, they waited for them to go live so that a dump truck can drive past and stay. It's so comical. I hate it. And so the problem is, remember, even when Cyril did it the first time, the people could speak to the officials and give them their voice. Now they're doing the king thing, right? So the mayors are the de facto chiefs. The mayor here in my town.
This is a strategy, but this is a strategy. Are they not on strategy to be doing exactly this? This is the strategy of the ANC. We have been in government and we have delivered these things. This is a political strategy. They're trying to stay in power.
Yes.
But how many other political strategies could you employ, right?
But it's the exact same strategy. It is the exact same strategy that we're seeing in the Western Cape, where the DA strategy is to say, we govern better. Look what we have done here. Bring us to your town. We can do it in your town too. It's a political strategy.
Yes, but the DA is not fashioning it. So there's a big divide between the DA, the party, and the DA, the governance. Right? And you can see that divide. My problem is, where the ANC starts to blur the line is where our money starts to bleed into the ANC campaigns and secretly move between the two. They use the same people to make the posters. The posters look exactly the same. They use the same shirts. The shirts look exact. And so the problem is, my problem is the grubby hands of the ANC, right? They can't keep their hands to themselves and to their own money. And my concern is, as always with their political strategy, they start to use the public coffers and start to magically make things disappear.
In the last hour. Okay,
but
Bakh'abantu,
Mr.
you go
Leeto,
first.
this is the problem with elections in South Africa. We don't vote for people, we vote for the ANC, we vote for parties. So wouldn't you say that the ANC is in fact the government, as even though we call them something else, but they are the government. The highest seat of the land is not the union buildings, it is Luthuli House. So that's what we are seeing. But you are complaining that it only applies when it comes to the money.
No. What I'm saying is, even if the seat of power is Luthuli House, right, in the country, the sneaky ways in which they do things, right, it's slimy, it's dishonest almost. So look, I don't mind you campaigning, right, because what the youth league is doing is actually putting out fires internally in the ANC. They're calling internal imbusers, they're calling them gatherings of cadres or something strange like that, right? And they're trying to put out fires internally because there's so much strife inside the ANC that these new faces are being put forward to go and try and quell the fires and bring unity again, right? I don't care about that. That's fine. It's a strategy of theirs to keep their membership voting, right? It's internal. And they could have done the same thing and extended it, that we have new faces, we're going to bring new hope or something of that sort. But what they do is they make this thin line between them and the NEC members where they could now start to share resources. And because we can't audit all of them all of the time, they probably are sharing resources and taking government money and giving it to the ANC.
We were talking in the last hour about marketing and about how marketing works, and we're talking about Lyft. I don't know if you heard this, and they are the billboard in the sky, as it were. The ANC is doing the exact same thing. They are marketing themselves ahead of an election. And the only way they have to market themselves ahead of this election is to say, this is what we've done when we were in power.
Yeah.
It is, and all I'm saying to you is that it is the exact same strategy that we are seeing in the Western Cape. Why is it a problem for you that it's the ANC and it is not a problem for you in another party?
Yes. You're not understanding me. The money flows. So when Lyft does the billboard in the sky, whatever it is, right? It doesn't sneakily take money from another rideshare company and mask it as their own money, right? Which is the problem that the ANC always
They're taking
does.
Disney money. But what I want to talk about is what you believe the political strategies should be then. What is the political strategy going forward? Especially because we see so many new parties coming into the play, right? So we see Action SA, we see Busa with
ACT.
What should the political strategy be?
I think if we want a new outcome in this country, right? Even with the ANC, if they want a new kind of ANC that's renewed, we need new strategies. Because all of these people go to the same strategist. I'm connected with young people from all of these parties. You know, guys, you laugh, right? But one of the guys from the new parties told me outright that, oh no, the Free State and Northern Cape for us aren't priority provinces. We don't care whether we win or lose them. Yet they're going to contest a national election, right? I asked an EFF member this. He said the same thing. I asked a DA member this who was in the Free State and is now in Parliament. And she said the same thing. We're not looking to win the Free State. We're not looking to win the Northern Cape, right? And so if everyone's political strategy is Free State, Northern Cape, not a priority.
But that's not where the numbers are.
No.
To win an election, you need numbers. The numbers are not in the Northern Cape. The numbers are in KZN. The numbers are in the Western Cape, and the numbers are in Gauteng. So it makes no sense if you've got a little bit of budget to try and go for those places too. Even in a national election, you go for where the numbers are.
But remember what South African politics are when it comes to voting. It's a game of makeup. You're trying to make up the numbers. Right, because that's what coalition is make up the numbers that the ANC has and see if we can't push them out. So if the makeup isn't looking the same, if nobody's saying go to these two provinces, because Rise Mzansi actually went to the Northern Cape and did one stint, And then they did a 360 about them not being a priority province because they got there and people were hungry for a new party to be involved. And they looked and they said, well, this place looks like it's fertile ground to plant something. Yes, we might not win the election with them, but if we plant something now, the next time we're doing elections, they would recognize us. But because they go to the same political strategists and do the same old political strategies, and then next year, like crazy people, we're expecting a different result, right? We're expecting somehow that there's going to be a large shift in Johannesburg, that 8 million people are going to suddenly move from the ANC and suddenly flood into the other parties, which is, like I said, it's a game of makeup, right? Where do we make up these people that the ANC seem to have a grip on? Maybe we could steal, in Johannesburg, we could steal 2 million people from them. Let's assume, right? And it's not only the EFF stealing the 2 million people, they're divided amongst all the other parties, right? Where do we make up the rest? And so my problem is, in South Africa, we seem to be locked in our ways in every sector. If one thing has been working since apartheid, this is our thing. Even though apartheid is dead,
so it's apartheid's fault.
No, it's not even apartheid's fault. Like, yeah. It worked in 94 for the ANC. So all elections are 94. And so that's the big problem.
But 2024 is our 1994.
Yeah. Oh, woman, please stop saying that. I hate it so much.
Mr. Leeto,
Why do you hate it? This is their slogan.
Yes.
This is their slogan.
That's the worst slogan. It's not 1994, right? It's worse than 1994. This is our most desperate time. If the ANC makes it into office in 2024, if it's 1994, because in 1994, what was the result? The ANC won. Stop saying it's 1994. Say it's something else. Say it's 1994.
Bakh'abantu, you wanted to add something.
No, I just wanted to see if Mr. Leeto saw this one. This big shift. This big shift in political spheres and political power.
Is it a big shift? Do you think it is a big shift, Bakh'abantu?
I don't know if she has a constituency. I don't think it is a shift, but it's more political theater than anything else. Also, she released a statement that only the EFF can end load shedding in South Africa. So I think that is powerful, right? From the person who saw the books thinks that the EFF can end load shedding in South Africa. So,
and I saw there's a headline that there is another famous person that will be joining the EFF. I'm not sure if they will be joining the EFF because I also saw a video that had one of the big DJs from Ukhozi FM in KZN talking at an EFF rally, and I wondered if that's the big name that they were bringing across. So Do you think this makes a difference, Leeto? These big names that are coming onto the EFF. I mean, they recently brought Jimmy Manye. They have now brought Busisiwe Mkhwanazi. They are really making an effort to bring in some of these faces that we're used to seeing. Busisiwe was not non-aligned at the time because that's the job that she was in, needed her to be non-aligned. Do you think that these big names are going to make a difference? Is this part of the political strategy for the EFF?
Yes, it's to soften the crust that is Julius Malema, right?
Soften the crust
on the wound of South Africa. Because think about it. Even though we sort of at times sort of love Julius, he hits the right notes at times, but he's so crass about doing it, right? We might love his results, we might even love his ideas, but the way in which he puts those ideas forward needs a Ringo to be standing next to him so that we remember he's still South African. Right? He needs the soft faces around him. Because really, nobody politically cares about Jimmy Manye. Nobody has cared about Jimmy Manye politically for years. Right? No. When he was in Welcome, so let me tell you the story of Jimmy Manye. Jimmy Manye used to be a miner in Welcome. And he wasn't Zwanele then because he was heading up the union. That's how he got his nice house in Johannesburg. That's how he started to go to Johannesburg.
Is he the one
that got the nice house?
Oh no, the one with the nice house died. The one with the nice house died. So
he started the foundation for nice houses in Johannesburg. Yeah. He insisted on the miners. Once he was elected into NUM, he insisted on being called Jimmy because the white people needed to know him with his English name. So I'm gonna call him Jimmy for the rest of my life as a Welcome citizen. It's his name from here. That's how we know him. He's not Mzwanele. He's Mzwanele now that African names are popular. Let's
Yes.
get out of
Hayi
here.
man, uribrandile umntana bantu. Yes, so you're saying nobody cares, but these faces are meant to soften the crust on the wound, you say?
Yes, because remember, and Busisiwe Mkhwebane, even though she's got her scandals, falls under the we are bringing in the academics kind of
Yes,
mindset.
that's
right?
what it looked like to me too.
Yeah. She's got her law degrees, and so she looks like part of the thing that they're trying to build, this sort of like a conglomerate of people who are graduating and upwardly mobile, and sort of the smart black evolved to EFF. And that's sort of the strategy that they're putting forward, because Malema alone, I don't think gets them the votes that puts them over the hump. But him with a softened view and the kinds of people around him might get him across as somebody who's seeming to be accepting of different views, right? And it doesn't also look like he's trying to also not look like Bantu Holomisa and Teralekota at the same time.
But you say that simultaneously, the news of, I think it's almost 65 councillors and members of parliament who were expelled because they were not able to bring the buses
Yes.
to Joburg.
I wanted to ask about
This is at the same time, and there was also another video of Ngizwe Mchunu, him of Azkale, lambasting basically Julius Malema for that decision.
But
which makes him a dictator.
No. If you're going into the EFF, you expect such things, right? Because
to be expelled for not bringing a pass, Aibo.
Do you know how much they charge the parliamentarians that they have to contribute?
Please I saw a breakdown. Of how much because
I think it's almost 30% of their salary that they have to put back into the EFF, and
they have to buy bakkies.
Yeah,
and they have to buy a bakkie to serve their community.
And this is including the councillors, by the way. It's not just parliamentarians. Every office holder of the EFF has to give like a large amount to the EFF, right? And so you're expecting something stupid like that to happen. And the way Julius masks it is this: you have to be in tune with your community. It's not your money. You don't have to put out money yourself. But if you are an EFF member, if you're truly EFF, you'll go and source funds because we're tough like that. Because that's what he's trying to build. That's the brand. So EFF built tough can sort of fundraise anywhere and anywhere with anyone. And so if you fundraise, will allow you to do it, right? And that's that's the sort of crass part of Julius Malema. But he also has to do that because right now the EFF also has no time for freeloaders. It has no time for people who are standing still. It has no time for comfortable people like in the ANC. And ANC member, you looked at that parliament when they were voting for the new public protector, and you were going, who? All over the screen, I'm going, who is this? Who's the person standing and shouting? Who's this? Because I was telling guys, you don't understand how
there are 400 people in parliament. There are 400 people in parliament.
Of the 400, I haven't seen 200 of them. I haven't seen them. It was the first time I saw them on that day, screaming and shouting like kids in a kindergarten, right? And so my problem is, you've never even seen those people, but they're there, and the ANC accepts that they're there, right? They might be there because they know somebody, they're a friend of somebody, somebody's my uncle, and now I'm in parliament. The biggest problem with the EFF is they can't afford any of those, because if you at any time get any of those freeloaders who don't fundraise for you, don't bring the buses, then there are a few less faces in the crowd of the EFF, right? The red sea that we're always seeing. And so FNB Stadium is not filled up for Julius Malema to raise his fist on the podium. And so the optics then don't look like what they should. And I get it, but still, his sort of crass nature needs a softening blow, and I think that's the only way for him to go over well with the voter base, because even the young people don't like some of the things that he does.
I don't understand why there is so much outrage on the fact that the EFF expects its deployees, members of parliament and councillors, to put in a certain amount of their salary back into the EFF, when at the very same time there is an expectation of DA members to bring in a certain amount of fundraising. There is the same expectation of Action SA members. I mean, we saw this on the news with Herman Mashaba and what some of those individuals who want to stand for positions within the party, how much they have to bring in terms of fundraising. So why the outrage for Julius when he says, we're going to send you to parliament or we're going to send you to be in the council and you must bring in some of this money back into the party? The party needs funds to run.
Yes. Plow back.
Plow back.
Why would you be around?
No.
Yeah.
You're plowing back, right? That's fine. I get the plowing back. Everyone does it. That's the standard in South Africa. On top of me plowing back, Phumi, I must now bring a bus full of people from Welcome.
Yes.
How many people from Welcome?
Those are the
Yes.
people that are going to vote for you.
Yes.
If you cannot convince people in Welcome, where you are from, to get on a bus and come and support the party at a stadium, right? How are you going to get those people to go and vote for you on a ballot?
Can't convince
3,000
the people in Welcome.
Amabuto got on a bus and went to Pretoria to support their king.
Hey, when I asked
They were king.
Their king.
They
They are king. So if you can't support the person you voted for, then what are you doing? What have you done for me lately? Also, you did touch on something. He is a dictator, says Phumi, in the sense that he is the commander in chief. Let's not forget the
It's
language.
his party.
Yeah, it's his party, exactly. So he has a right to set the laws the way he wants to.
Yes.
This man
And
does
that's-
not stylize himself as president. He's a commander in chief.
But the problem
There's a
is
reason why that language and that verbiage is used.
in South African politics, there are two people you don't want to look like. You don't want to look like Bantu Holomisa. You don't want to look like Terralikot. That's true. You don't want to look like Bantu
His name is
Holomisa.
Musiwa Lukota.
No. He's from Kronstadt. In Kronstadt, he said he was terror. The one that if you come from Free State, and you give us your name, that's your name. Don't tell us you are Musiwa there when you are suddenly in parliament.
Okay, you have to elaborate on that. That these are two people. There are people, I can tell you for free. There are people here in our listener, in the comments who don't even know who Bantu Holomisa is. You say you don't want to look like Bantu
You don't want
Holomisa.
to look
What
like
does that
you don't want
mean?
to look like a general.
How?
Listen, remember, Bantu Holomisa, right? Bantu Holomisa, he was the prodigy. He was the one lauded by Nelson Mandela to be the next big thing. And it looks like in his politics, it looks like he's still trying to be the next big thing that Mandela ordained, right? And even how he handles his party, you don't know anyone else. You know, it's him and that Xhosa guy. They're the only people from the UDM that you know. You've never seen anyone. You've never seen a UDM rally. You've never seen a UDM shirt. You've never seen a UDM anything. It's just
And yet they are represented in parliament.
Yes, but then they're represented and their growth is stunted like a child who.
So just to refine your argument that you made here, Mr. Leeto, about the political strategy and how it is so archaic in South Africa. I've listened to the language that we've talked about on the show. We are talking about stealing votes from the ANC. This is how most political parties speak. This is how the DA speaks. We're going to take votes from... What about the free votes? The people that are disenfranchised with the voting system, they're disenfranchised with government, the people who don't know about voting, who don't know about how participation and all these things, because it doesn't matter if you take votes away from the ANC. We're talking about taking votes away from the ANC. The EFF might steal 2 million. Why are they not creating new voters? Why is that not the political strategy? Why are we not empowering new people?
The voters who are gone aren't coming back. I can
But they are
that.
new voters.
They are new voters. My sister just turned 18. She's going to vote in the next election.
I looked at the campus.
You are shaking your head. You are shaking your head vigorously for those who can't see you. Why are you shaking your head like that? Talk to me about on-campus voters.
I'll tell you a secret. I teach them every day. They do not care. They very simply, campus participation with campus voting has gone down so significantly that campuses have stopped inviting the IEC to come and conduct the elections. They just do it online now. That's how bad it's become. There's no large voter base. The SRC in most campuses is not even voted for by 10% of the population of students. Literally, if your member is wearing a shirt, they're gonna go vote for you. All other students don't care. And so that the generation that's coming, the new voters, even the voters who haven't been voting, those people aren't coming back because they aren't impressed. And our political parties aren't even looking to impress them. The only person who's talking about them is Musi Maimane, and we don't actually know what Musi is doing with his party. So
we don't
that's the
actually
big problem. The only person who's talking about those people is Musi, and nobody knows what Musi is doing. And so when we're talking the next election, these elections are they're here. In political terms, it's 6 days away. And so you don't have time to get new converts to your cult of personality called a South African party, because that's what South African parties are. Nobody's going to love Herman in the next 3 months. If you don't already love him, nobody's going to
love him. So
what do you, because you teach them every day, Leeto, you have an insight that maybe most of us don't have. What do you think political parties should be saying or doing to excite those young people?
And I've always been saying this. South African parties are really bad at mapping out the future, right? They're bad at saying, so they're saying, let's push out the ANC next year. But they're very bad at saying, what does it look like after the ANC, right? Because even if the DA says it will look like the Western Cape, if I'm black, I'm looking at it and going, Western Cape looks good in town, but Khayelitsha, where I'm from, it still looks the same. So the big problem is they're bad at mapping out. And one thing the ANC has done that's excellent is they'll map it out for you. They'll tell you that the 350 will probably be 650 next time. The grant might be more. They're good at mapping out, even with their mistakes. They're good with mapping out what the mistake doesn't look like, right? They'll tell you that the mayor was bad. It's a comrade who wasn't listening to through the eye of the needle. He didn't read. And they tell you what the problem is and what it looks like post the problem. They're very bad at applying those things, but they're very good at mapping them out. No party in South Africa, when you give them airtime on these hour-long podcasts, none of them come and say, after you put in Action SA, this is what it looks like. This is the first step, because these young people that I teach every day are more nervous about their futures than anything else. They are very jittery about it. They don't know where they land. They don't even know where they are now. They're positioned now. So most of the parties can't even tell them where young people are positioned in South Africa in order to take us forward. They can't tell us as a young person, this is where you are. This is where you think you are most useful, and this is what you might do. So if somebody comes in and says, we're going to do a youth service program, and not the yes thing, that stupid thing that Cyril does. We're going to do a simple youth program where you go into a government position. You are going to be a policeman. Even if you've graduated from university, you're going to be a nurse. You're going to be an administrator in a hospital. You are going to have a year of service in the army, anywhere. And this year of service, you will then decide what to do afterward. The young people will then know, if when I come out of this university, or even if I'm in a township, if I take this step, I land in the army. If I take this step, I land in the police force and contribute. And then after that, I will plot my way, right? But you don't tell them this, and so they don't care. They're not invested in your program because it sounds like your program doesn't include them. They're not on social grants. They don't want to be on social grants. They're not part of the people that you're trying to give 350s to. And so they fall into this sort of like, the nice term that they were using during the the Peace March protest was the missing middle. The young people in this election, the new voters, are the missing middle. We have no way to classify them. We have no way to promise them anything, and we don't have any mechanism of bringing them closer to us. They don't care.
Bakh'abantu, you get the last word. Is Leeto right? Is this how young people are feeling? Is this how you are feeling going into the election next year?
So currently I've only voted in one election because of how my birthday is structured. It's at the end of the year. So I've only voted in one election. I've never understood my fellow youth and my friend, to what Mr. Leeto is saying about mapping out, he did say that if we don't vote next year, and it struck a chord with me, is that these are the problems that we will face. Like Uti, it's a mere selfish decision that you need to take. It's not for the greater good of the country. He needs to vote for something that speaks to him, because to solve a future problem that he knows he will have. So if it means your future problem is xenophobia, vote for Action SA. If your future problem is the Land Act and you want the land back, vote for the EFF. But you need to take a stand. I think at this point, you just need to have a voice. We don't have the great, like you're saying, the election is right here. No one is speaking, but I think you need to participate, people.
I think that's a good place to stop. Leeto, thank you for coming on. It's quite a lot of stuff that we spoke about. Spoke about mining, spoke about voters, spoke about young people, spoke about political mapping. I like that the young people going into the next election are the missing middle. And maybe we need to consider how we get those young people more interested. Thank you to everybody in the comments. Everybody, I see what you're saying. Patricia Vinelli, listen, Carl dos Santos, Sanele, everybody in the comments, please pass this podcast to everybody. If you haven't already, you've got little 30 seconds. Like and subscribe to the podcast. Thank you for joining us. I'll see you next week on the Burning Platform. Thanks, Leeto, for coming.
Thank you for having me, guys. It was such a pleasure.
Thank you for keeping me company, Bakh'abantu. It was always
a
wonderful
pleasure,
to
ma'am.
have you here.